Well, what if we share a different destiny? A little more scorched earth, shock and awe, blood and bone.
Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be my full video for The Boys Season 3, Episodes 1 through 3. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs for Marvel and DC. Everyone better hide their milk. If you're brand new to the channel, I will be doing videos for all of the episodes. Be sure to subscribe to get them all. Careful for spoilers from Episodes 1 to 3 if you haven't seen them yet. But I'll start at the beginning in Episode 1, and we'll work our way through shot by shot, talking about Easter eggs and WTF moments as we go along. So I'll try to keep this video from turning into like an hour-long video because there's so much to talk about, and they are really long episodes. They cover a bunch of brand new stuff and introduce a bunch of new characters, like Soldier Boy, Jensen, Ackles, for instance. But the title of Episode 1 is Payback. That's meant to be a reference to the Payback team in the comics. That's meant to be an Avengers Marvel reference, Payback as in revenge, or the Revengers if you want to make jokes about that. In the comics, Stormfront was the leader of that team. They're meant to be like the second backup team to the Seven. On the show, they're saying that Payback was the team that Soldier Boy led during the 80s before he was put on ice, effectively. The way they're using him on the TV show is that he's meant to be like the prototype for Homelander, so he's a little bit different from the comic book version. There are a couple different versions in the comics, and they've kind of combined both of those to form Jensen Ackles' character. Vought wound up using him as a prototype for what eventually became the Homelander character. Like, they created him in a test tube, as he says, "I don't even know what my own birthday is." There's this whole subplot with them refining the Compound V formula over time, to present day when he develops that temporary version of the formula, which is actually a really big deal with Butcher getting powers. Which is all part of this larger ploy that he's been engineering to try and get superheroes in the military and just become a more profitable company. That gets into more of the White House plot. Don't worry, I'll talk about that because that's like a subplot that's running across all these different storylines through the first couple of episodes. It all comes back around to this four-dimensional chess game that Stan Edgar has been playing all the way since the flashbacks. The actual opening scene of Episode 1 is that hilarious Seven movie that they were shooting all of last season, Dawn of the Seven. It's meant to be a big Justice League Snyder Cut Easter egg, but the title is meant to be a reference to Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. The way they use the movie and the jokes that they make are meant to be both Marvel, Avengers Endgame, and Justice League Snyder Cut parodies. Bigger surprise, they recast Charlize Theron as the Stormfront character and just reshot all of her scenes. They also make a bit of a Star Wars Rogue One joke too. When they were making the Rogue One movie, the original director, Gareth Edwards, kind of got pushed aside and brought in Tony Gilroy to rewrite and reshoot a ton of it. They make all these jokes about release the Vought cut, release the Snyder cut, obviously. Even Zack Snyder got in on the jokes, tweeting about it, like, haha, yeah, I'm so happy to see your vision realized. When they all team up to fight Stormfront, they also make an Avengers Endgame Portals joke, like when all the other heroes of the Seven show up. The ironic thing with having Charlize Theron play this villain Stormfront character, obviously, is that we just saw her in Doctor Strange 2 in the post-credit scene. She's not going to be Clea inside the MCU. I did a whole bunch of videos about that, so I'll post them in the description below, because that's meant to be a big Secret Wars teaser, obviously very different from what's going on during the universe of The Boys. But you also notice in the background of this scene, there's this very prominent ad placement for Turbo Rush, which is A-Train's soft drink. And it's just showing you how Vought has cleverly manipulated the movie after the big Stormfront incident to capitalize on all the PR and earn even more money. There's this whole subplot throughout the episode that just kind of shows you that everything that Vought does, it's all about making money. They're meant to be this pharmaceutical company, as Stan Edgar says. They don't really care about superheroes, it's all just about earning more money. The only difference now in present day is that Stan Edgar wants to transition them to become more of a pharmaceutical and more of a defense contractor and just forget about all the superhero and the merchandising stuff. But like, there's all these jokes about the TV networks they own, all the branded entertainment, all the ad placements that they put within all of their media. It's meant to seem like they have their tendrils in everything. They're controlling everything that you see, everything that you hear, and now everything that you believe. Because as Stan Edgar eventually tells Starlight, real power is all about influencing people, it's not about actually having real superpowers. Then they confirm pretty much all of our theories about what's going on with Victoria Newman. She is working with Stan Edgar, although it goes way deeper than I thought in the past. The full backstory on her character is that we find out that Vought has this facility called Red River where they send all their failed superheroes. So like, they give Compound V to a bunch of babies hoping that they'll have powers that they can profit off of. But sometimes the children's powers manifest before they learn how to control them and they accidentally kill their parents. Also, sometimes they don't know what their powers are or they have really weird powers that they can't control and the parents abandon them. And Victoria Newman was one of these kids that accidentally wound up killing her parents when she was a child and was sent to the facility, but eventually Stan Edgar saw that there was potential in her and kind of adopted her, and she became his surrogate daughter, eventually using her as sort of his ploy on the other side of things in the government to try and get a foothold in the actual US government. It's all about Stan Edgar's plan to basically control all different aspects of the game. He wants real power, and what that means, and this kind of dovetails with the comic book plot, is being able to control the White House. There's also the supernatural Easter eggs of this too. There's a lot of supernatural stuff going on in this show with a bunch of different characters. Everyone knows about Jim Beaver's Robert Singer character from The Government. He was on during season 2. Robert Singer was one of the producers of Supernatural. That's why they use that name for this character, because the showrunner of The Boys, the creator of The Boys TV show, is the original creator of the Supernatural TV show. That's the connection back to Jensen Ackles as well too, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who was on that show, is going to cameo during season 4. But while Stan Edgar is revealing this grand plan about getting superheroes in the military, he's kind of soft revealing his plan to control public policy in the White House and the entire government. When he reveals that he's also funding Robert Singer's presidential campaign, oh, people love a cowboy in the White House. Also revealing that he kind of controls Congress because of Victoria Newman, because like right after he says, oh, I can grease the wheels in Congress, they cut straight to Victoria Newman. Also revealing what's going on with this new Department of Superheroes working within the CIA. It's all Stan Edgar's four-dimensional chess game controlling every aspect of the game. What he's trying to do with Victoria Newman's department is basically show her being successful in the public eye to make her more popular, making it easier for her to gain more power in Congress. And like they had that really big WTF Thanos scene, don't worry, I'll get to that. There's so much that we could say about that. Stan Edgar is basically having them go after bottom-feeder superheroes that he doesn't care about anymore or who he can't profit of, because the minute that their Ant-Man parody character winds up becoming profitable again, he tells them to go find another superhero. Like, oh, we can't arrest him because Vought just said he got a merchandising deal. But the whole reason he's doing this, trying to turn the company into more of a defense contractor, a true pharmaceutical company, is because, literally, it's just more profitable. He wants to sell the military doses of this new version of Compound V, $2 million a pop, which essentially works out to $600 million per squad, and there are many squads in the military, so even just having a month-long campaign, Vought is going to be earning many, many billions of dollars. He's not lying when he's telling Robert Singer's character that this business of being in superheroes is just way too much trouble than it's worth. So when he says in the next couple of years, he says that he does not plan to be in the superhero game, that's basically him foreshadowing the end of the series. Like in a couple years, when we get to like season 4, season 5, whatever their final season winds up being, that's going to be the end, quote unquote, of everything. That also dovetails with this whole Homelander plot when he goes to Butcher and they talk about getting all biblical, like, don't you want to go all scorched earth on this? Like, just you versus me. That's basically what Homelander sees as the boys' endgame. So with Stan Edgar planning on phasing out superheroes just in general, wanting to get rid of them, and Homelander wanting to just completely lose it on the rest of the world, you see this all culminating in the next couple of years. Battle Royale for the planet of the boys. We gotta talk about that Thanos scene though. Obviously it wasn't exactly like the Thanos, but it basically is a Thanos scene. The character that Frenchie and Kimiko go after is meant to be an Ant-Man parody. They call him Termite on the show. He winds up killing his partner accidentally because he sneezes, but in the Thanos way. All the funny scenes of him fighting Kimiko and Frenchie is just meant to show you how much trouble Ant-Man could cause, how powerful he could be if he really went off the chain. I'm sure if you really tried, you could also probably take out Ant-Man with a giant bag of Coke too. Throughout all the episodes, there are a billion different Marvel and DC parody characters that they name off, but like in episode 1 when they talk about the different ones that they're going after, there's Cold Snap, which I think is meant to be a Captain Cold parody, Stacker, and Airburst. I think the Airburst is meant to be another Tornado Twins Easter egg. But there is a pair of twins on the Payback team back in the 80s. I think that they're actually meant to be the direct Tornado Twins Easter egg. Don't worry, I'll talk about the Payback team in a second. They don't really get into their backstory till you get to episode 3. But you see early on with this whole temporary Compound V formula plot that they're trying to set up a parallel between Butcher and Homelander's arc. Both of them are totally nuts. In the comics, Butcher is supposed to be as terrible as Homelander, just in a completely different direction. He goes off the rails, just the same way that Homelander also goes off the rails. The TV show is trying to be a little bit more subtle about it, but that's the whole struggle with him trying to decide whether or not to take the Compound V, which he eventually does. I love the way that he also hallucinates talking to himself as a young person, to Homelander, to Huey, when he thinks about taking it for the first time. He doesn't want to turn into someone as bad as Homelander, but he's being pushed in that direction. Like towards the end of episode 3, they literally say, we can't do things above board anymore. We have to be just as terrible as the other guys. In the comic book, they do way crazier stuff. So if you want like the full dose of craziness, just read the comic. They reveal that Starlight and Huey are still in a relationship, they're living together, but there's this whole subplot with her becoming co-captain of the Seven and kind of having to sit within the belly of the beast, also slowly losing it in the same way that Homelander is slowly losing it. There's a big flashback during episode 3 where they show you her as a child being forced to do all these pageants for Vought. You see her clench her fist to try and suppress her rage. She also does that in present day after she's forced to stay within the Seven and put up with all this craziness, like she has to pretend to be Homelander's girlfriend now in the public. They also bring back Huey's dad, played by Simon Pegg. The big Easter egg here is that originally the creator of the Boys comic book designed Huey to look like Simon Pegg, and originally he was going to play Huey if they had made the Boys TV show back in the early 2000s, but because he got too old, he just wound up playing his dad. But they just did a Boys Diabolical animated short series, and during one of those episodes, they actually had Simon Pegg playing a version of Huey from the comics, and it was more accurate to the comic books. The brand new supersonic character they introduced used to be Starlight's boyfriend when they were on the Teenage Kicks, which is like their version of the Teen Titans. They have this big reality show called American Superhero, which they're using to find the next member of the Seven, but really, it's just Vought trying to earn more money. The other heroes that were competing on the team were meant to be Moonshadow, which I think is meant to be a Moondragon parody, and Silver Kincaid, which I believe is meant to be a Silver Sable reference. If you're a big fan of reality TV, they also spend a lot of time making fun of different aspects of reality TV, and it's all true. Probably one of the bigger WTFs, especially early on though, is the reveal that Stormfront's still alive. The showrunner said that she was still supposed to be alive, but didn't reveal exactly how they were going to use her. They reveal she's being kept in Homelander's apartment in the Tower of the Seven, but she's basically an invalid, like she's full Anakin Skywalker burnt toast. She has the one working hand, but essentially it's a living hell for her. They make a joke about her still giving hand jobs to Homelander, and it just completely not working because she's still going full Nazi on him. And obviously the WTF reveal that Stormfront killed herself rather than surviving in that state, like it became a living nightmare for her. When Ashley makes the joke about Stormfront $1 million babying herself, during that movie, the protagonist bites out her own tongue, attempting to bleed to death. That's how Stormfront was able to kill herself. They set up this whole running storyline with Soldier Boy's character. Most of it is meant to be a misdirect, like Maeve kind of tips him off, like, oh, they told this story about him dying in a nuclear meltdown in the mid-'80s, but that's all a lie. Soldier Boy, obviously Jensen Ackles' character, we've seen him in the trailer, we know he's coming back in present day, but it sounds like we don't see him in present day till at least episode 4 or episode 5. They changed him a little bit from the comics, but essentially Soldier Boy was meant to be the Americans' first version of a superhero, whereas Stormfront was the first version of the Nazis' superhero. Soldier Boy is meant to be a big Captain America parody. His backstory is pretty much the same as Captain America's. He's meant to be the douchiest version of Captain America you could possibly imagine. You get that kind of vibe when he's talking to Mallory in the flashbacks. When they explain Mallory's history with him in the Iran-Contra incident, that is them trying to do a version of the comics, just using a different war because everything happening is happening later in the timeline than it was in the comics. You see the old version of Soldier Boy during World War II era, it looks like. Then the young version of Stan Edgar makes it sound like Soldier Boy was also present for the Korean War, but for some reason wasn't involved in the Vietnam War. Because when the young version of Stan Edgar is talking to Mallory in the mid-'80s, he says that it's been almost 30 years since they've had a superhero inside the military. They have a parody of the Wasp, they have a Professor X parody who's a telepath, they have a Tornado Twins parody, like I said. Gunpowder is more of a Judge Dredd parody, but the way they're using him is more of a Bucky parody because he's the sidekick of Soldier Boy. Their version of Laurie Holden is playing Crimson Countess. She's meant to be a Scarlet Witch parody, obviously kind of funny after seeing Doctor Strange 2 with that version of Scarlet Witch in the MCU. And they reveal a whole bunch about Black Noir's backstory. Apparently, he just used to be totally normal. I think they want to juxtapose his tragic backstory with A-Train's backstory. Like, they want to show what could potentially happen to A-Train if he stays with the Seven, the same way that Black Noir has stayed with the Seven. This should also show you that the Black Noir on the TV show isn't meant to be like the comic book version, so they're probably not going to have the same type of ending for that character with the ending for Homelander that the comics did. I think when we talk about what ultimately happens to Homelander, it's all about what's going on with Ryan's character. He is meant to be the Homelander deterrent. But there's this whole subplot with what really happened to Soldier Boy during that incident, and even Mallory has the wool pulled over her eyes, and she believes that he's dead, which obviously isn't true because we've seen him in the trailer. But they believe there's some secret weapon that killed Soldier Boy that the Russians somehow have access to, when really I think it's all about some crazy twist behind Soldier Boy's powers and Stan Edgar really trying to put him on ice and just use him as research material to try and create a better superhero, which winds up culminating in Homelander. So this whole subplot with them thinking that there's a weapon that they're going to find is probably going to lead to actual Soldier Boy like, wait a minute, what are you doing here? Love all the funny moments with them going around to the different payback members and just things going completely off the rails, trying to get more information about it too. Butcher had made the decision to try the Compound V before he learned about the truth of Victoria Newman though, even though it seemed like that pushed him over the edge. Like, oh, that's it, gloves are off now. Probably one of the most messed up moments though is when Homelander loses it on the girl that he's supposed to be saving, like, oh, maybe you should jump. No, seriously, you should definitely jump right now. That happens during episode 2. The title of that episode is The Man in the Sky, which is a reference to Homelander because he flies. He is the man in the sky, but it's also a reference to God, like the big guy up there. In Homelander's whole speech about how people are essentially killing their God, and now there is no God, he is the only man in the sky. So everyone should start bowing to him. That's also meant to connect with a conversation he has with Starlight, challenging her to actually release the video of the plane because he doesn't care anymore either way. He's thirsty for the love and attention of the entire world, but he's just fine in having everyone fear him, meaning that he doesn't care about anything anymore, so they have no leverage anymore. All bringing it back around to that conversation that he has with Butcher in episode 1 about his scorched earth policy, like literally scorching the earth, because he talks about destroying all these big population centers. Remember, that's like Endgame for the Boys show in a couple seasons. That is, unless Ryan is eventually able to challenge and stop him. When we start learning more about the truth of what really happened with the Payback team and Soldier Boy in the past, we learn that Soldier Boy, all those superheroes, are incompetent just like the ones in present day, cause just as much collateral damage. Vought tries to cover it up just the same. We learned that during that period in the 80s, Soldier Boy wound up killing Mother's Milk's family, and it just drove him crazy this whole time trying to figure out what actually happened and how to get back at them. You think that Butcher is hardcore? I cannot wait to see what Mother's Milk tries to do to Soldier Boy. But they end episode 3 with this huge WTF reveal that Homelander, now just completely lost it, has brought deep back to the 7. There's so many messed up moments with that character. But they bring him back onto the 7 for the same reason why Homelander tries to announce to the public that he's now in a relationship with Starlight, because it's all a big ratings ploy, and it plays to that same base that loved him losing his mind on live television. And if it wasn't clear, during that celebratory dinner where he basically forces him to eat his friends, like he has him eat all this shellfish, like please give me some bread, don't make me eat my friends, Homelander forces the Deep to eat his friend Timothy the Octopus, who he was getting it on with while he was doing it with his wife. Like as messed up as that scene was with him and the octopus and his wife, he also has to eat that octopus alive. And while he's doing it, he basically narrates everything the octopus is saying as it's in the process of dying. Like, oh my god, he has a wife and family that he's caring about. He's begging for his life. He's praying now as he crunches down on him. The Boys is one of those TV shows where like each moment is more messed up than the last and you think that they can't top themselves, but somehow it gets even crazier and we're only at episode 3 right now. And speaking of messed up things that The Boys is getting ready to do, the Global Wellness Retreat in Malibu that Victoria Newman talks about is The Boys' TV show version of the Herogasm. Vought lies to the public, telling them that it's this learning experience that superheroes go to every year, but really it's meant to be like the most debaucherous version of superhero spring break that you've ever seen. But there are a billion things that happen in these first couple of episodes. I didn't include everything in this video just because I didn't want it to turn into like an hour-long video. So if there's anything that I didn't talk about that you have questions about, just write it below in the comments and we'll cover it in the comments. My full video for The Boys Season 3 Episode 4 will post next week on Friday. It'll be a Friday show. My full Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 4 video will also post next week, and Marvel also has a brand new weekly series that's starting next week. So we'll be eating really good. Make sure you have alerts enabled for my channel so you don't miss that. Everyone click here for my full Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 3 video and Easter eggs, and click here for my brand new Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 4 trailer video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.